Justin Trudeau, we have a message.
At a youth summit in front of a protest for more action on climate change, the Prime Minister was quick to talk up a big win for his government today.
The federal government absolutely can and must regulate greenhouse gas emissions.
And his environment minister used the legal ruling to send a political message.
It is an essential part of any credible plan to tackle the global challenge of climate change. I really would ask Conservative politicians to stop fighting climate action in the courts and start fighting climate change with us.
Hugh'Z Knewz, Ottawa.
Now, those protesters who interrupted the Prime Minister in Ottawa weren't the only ones speaking out about climate change today. Young people across Canada hit the streets.
Climate change is a growing issue that I think a lot of people know about, but they don't necessarily take it seriously. But we need to start doing that, or else we're going to see some irreversible changes.
Politicians need to know that this is serious and that this matters to us.
We want to save our planet before it's too late.
Students walked out of class to call on governments at all levels to do more, saying they're the ones who'll have to deal with the consequences. The actions are part of a so-called Fridays for Future movement. A Swedish teen activist started it last year, and it has since spread around the world.
As we've been discussing, a new poll suggests many Canadians aren't happy with the way Justin Trudeau's government has handled the asylum seeker issue. But is this situation really the crisis the Conservatives say it is? Joining me now from Moncton, New Brunswick, the leader of the official opposition, Andrew Scheer. So, Mr. Scheer, your party is calling this a crisis. The numbers indicate that fewer people are coming over the border. When is it no longer a crisis in your view?
Well, I would point out that the numbers are still higher this year than they were last year. I think anytime you have this level of sustained crossings into the border at an illegal point in our border between the United States, that it's a huge issue.
But a crisis?
Well, you know, as I said, anytime you have over 30,000 people come into Canada illegally, the impact that has on social services, on the processing capacity of the refugee system to handle applicants from those from those waiting to come from very dangerous places like refugee camps in war-torn countries. I believe that's a very serious issue, and Canadians are rightly concerned about it.
I want to play you what the UNHCR representative Jean-Nicolas Beuz said just a few weeks ago about the idea that this is a crisis.
Germany, which is the double population of Canada, had received in 2016 700,000 to 800,000 asylum seekers compared to the 50,000 that Canada received. So I don't think we can qualify what's happening here in Canada as a crisis. A number of politicians, media and activists have been using that to gain some political point in a debate and scapegoating refugees.
So he is saying overseas is a situation much worse, that what is going on in Canada cannot be called a crisis. What is your response?
Well, I don't know that you can come to the conclusion that just because it's worse in other countries that doesn't mean it's a serious issue here. It has been going on for some time. It's having a major impact on provincial and municipal governments. And what I've been hearing from everywhere I go across Canada is that Canadians want a solution to this. And one of the groups that I've heard this the most from are those who have come here legally. Often those refugees who are waiting to be reunited from a loved one, someone who's in a camp, perhaps for 5 or 6 years now, watching someone coming from upstate New York, which is a very safe place, coming in illegally and being processed almost immediately. That's not fair. It's not right for people to jump the queue like that. That's why I think Canadians are rightly concerned about this.
I noticed that you have not used the word crisis yet in this interview, and yet that is something I've heard from your party numerous times. Given the state of affairs today, yes or no, do you consider this situation to be a crisis?
I think anytime you have a government that allows 30,000 people over the course of a short period of time to come into Canada illegally, the impact that has, that is a crisis. And Canadians have a crisis of confidence in their government right now in terms of coming forward with a solution to this. All we've seen, the only thing that this government has offered is to throw more money at the problem. Canadians aren't looking for a more expensive border system and immigration refugee system. They want a more efficient one, a more compassionate one that truly helps helps the world's most vulnerable.
To be fair, sir, they have gone overseas to try to convince people not to come. They are trying to reform the immigration system itself. I mean, there are efforts being made beyond simply putting money on the table.
There is an air of permanence at Roxham Road. They have made installations there without a significant policy change, without a decision by this government to say we are going to look at how our laws can be applied at these types of crossings without a fundamental change in, without a change of decision, without a change of direction from this government. This is something that could very well go on a permanent level well into the future. And that's part of what today's announcement was about. It was about a long-term plan to deal with these consequences, long-term spending. So that's why we have...
It was about $10 million of spending to help Toronto people who were in hotels for, I mean, that's really only another 2 months.
Well, the minister called it an installment, and you know, the minister called it an installment with the idea that there would be more to come. And I have to take issue with the fact that we now have a minister in name only. Minister Blair admitted at committee that these agencies, the border services agencies, don't even report to him, not directly or indirectly. So all the government has done here is a branding exercise, nothing substantive behind it.
Would you be satisfied if the CBSA reported to him?
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, at least it would be a meaningful thing, you know, to have a minister of border security that actually has authority over the border system.
I do have another immigration-related question for you. Last week, Erin O'Toole tweeted that support for Canada taking in the white helmets, that was the Conservative Party's stance. The Conservative immigration critic Michelle Rempel, as I'm sure you know, tweeted her surprise at Erin O'Toole's statement, and then she tweeted, "Guess the boys met without me, ? Is there a chauvinism issue in your party?"
Not at all.
Okay, so how do you respond to Ms. Rempel's questions and the fact that she and Mr. O'Toole seem to be publicly conflicting over an issue like this? How are you going to handle that?
I think you'll find that our shadow ministers work very cooperatively together, handling a lot of very intricate issues that